Hello and good evening, everyone.
এইটাকে ক্লিক করবে
If I could
Good
expect
evening.
somebody uh, to mute the phones, wonderful. Hello and good evening, everyone. It's a wonderful evening, and what a wonderful topic to start with. The webinar for today: rebooting management tech teachings and learnings in the post-COVID-19 period. And what a galaxy of stars we have got for the session. First of all, let me introduce to you the speakers, and then I would speak and I would discuss what is the background and the genesis of the webinar. We take you around through each of the speakers' thoughts on the exciting topic, and it's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Dipankar Chakravarti, the Executive Director, Professor Ashok Banerjee, the immediate past President of the Calcutta Management Association, Dr. Drupajyoti Chattopadhyay, he is joining in a bit, Vice Chancellor of the Sister Nivedita University, Rahul Dasgupta, Director and Trustee of the Globsin Business School, and I am your moderator for the evening. I am TVS Shenoy, of the Vice President of the Calcutta Management Association. First of all, thank you for being here, being with us today on this very, very exciting webinar, very relevant for the days, what we are going through, a period which I don't think any of us would have ever imagined would have come in our lifetime, and I hope it doesn't come again. A bit about Calcutta Management Association. Calcutta Management Association is the oldest management association in the country. It's over close to 60 years old, founded by none other than Jahangir Gandhi, a very famous Tata alumni, and based in Kolkata is also Globsin Business School. Globsin Business School, a leading business school, commenced 1995, all in the area of management education, and it's a great platform for CMA and Globsin to deliver this particular webinar on rebooting management techniques. If you have to reflect back on the periods today, look back at what the challenges are. I'm faced with one big dichotomy. What is the level of I would open up the session and request Dipankar Chakravarti, with experience, a wealth of experience in PwC, to perhaps run through what does it feel in terms of rebooting management teachings and learnings. What does it feel from the industry experience? What does it view today? What does it view in the short term? And what does it view in the medium term and the long term? If I could request Dipankar for his views, please.
Good evening, Mr. Shenoy. Thank you for giving a very crisp and to the point starting of the webinar. I mean, it's really an unprecedented crisis we are going through. And good evening, everybody who are here on the webinar, hearing us. From the industry perspective, if you see, the whole economy has got a jolt. It's not that any part of industry which is now getting anything which is really of hopefulness, which can I tell, but that doesn't mean that we are really deterred by the incident. And I always, when I discuss about this with multiple clients, I always tell them, look, there is challenge currently we are facing, but we should try to understand how it can be benefited because of this. And when I'm saying this rebooting, it's really not only the management teaching. Let me just give you the other side of the story. So what, when I see a management teaching, I see it as a supply chain for my industry, because I have a demand, I get people from you, so it's a basically supply chain relationship. And in an industry, when I'm seeing that people are really thriving for getting remote work, and I'm telling you, it is not easy. I mean, though companies like us are quite well averse of how to do remote working, but if you see manufacturing organizations, lots of face-to-face POS organizations, they cannot do remote working so easily. Now, if we really change that focus towards management learning, currently, if you see this particular challenge, we will be facing two things into this. One is, what is the mode of learning you should do? Is it really a remote learning really gives an effect to the people who are learning it? Second is, what is the content we should learn? Because with the COVID-19 scenario, I do not think that age old standard procedural management study will go long way. So we need to think that. Third thing I am telling you, which is a very interesting topic in all this, is the business model of management schools. Are we really be surviving only with the mass scale management student teaching, or should we look beyond that and have to do lots of reskilling of management personnel who are working currently? Because of this scenario of COVID-19, I am telling you, there are lots of changes happening in the skill set. And frankly, when I'm basically an emerging technology leader, and when people ask me that what really gives an impetus of digital transformation, I say COVID-19. Believe me, for last 1.5 year, amount of client communication I did on digital transformation, last 2 months, I got at least 5 times more calls from clients to tell me that, can you please come down and do my digital transformation? You were telling that, but now it is the time. So this, if you see these three things, so what is happening at one end, I am seeing that digital transformation is happening and lots of job profile is getting changed. And more so, what I'm seeing, people are trying to get alternate product lines, innovative product lines, because without that, it is very tough to survive. Now, if I go to just bring it to the management teaching, so two things. One, should we really focus on the standard management practice, or should we start putting in crisis management, disruptive innovation, entrepreneurship? And is this how we really teach the people? Is it only online? And I don't think that's a very good solution. There are lots of material you need to pass on to the students, and how you really become a more close to student, that is the challenge. And what I'm finding out, this is a parallelism in industry also. People are asking me how I understand productivity of my people. I tell, do you really need it? The question is, we are trying to be more connected to the people, more collaborative tool sets. Can we really bring that in also in the management teaching? Make people more collaborative, and tell them that, look, this is the way we are here, you are there, we are all talking together. it's not only a video, but also we can parallelly talk through a document, give lots of collaboration, new tools, and try to be more innovative in trading. And the middle path, so I was telling, this is a trading tag. I told about the business model. Probably you need to change it. You need to look into different things. The third one is content. In the content, I will try to be more innovative, bring in contents from large online available documents. We used to do that before, but now it is more required, because without that probably you cannot survive. Hence, I think these three, if we can look at, we'll have a rebooted post-COVID-19 scenario, which is actually a silver lining in the grim area. Over to you, Mr. Sena.
Yeah, I think Deepankar, I think some fabulous thoughts. And if I reflect back on my personal experience with where I run in the corporate, I echo most of your thoughts very well. And if I have to just connect the three of them and connect the dots and look back at what you meant in terms of rebooting management teaching, if you look at the content of learning, if you look at the business model, I think extremely relevant. And what we see in this day and age, the only thing constant is change. And the faster we adopt it, I think life has become a new normal. If I have to take back the same and connect the dot, and I lead it on to Dr. Shubhranshu Sanyal from IMC Innovation Center, I think Deepankar did make an important facet in rebooting education, and he meant about collaboration. And collaboration in the days of pre-COVID and collaboration of the days of post-COVID would be significantly different. How does one still be in touch and still not be in touch, still be able to get the jobs together and still have a varied teams across? So if I could ask the same to Dr. Shubhranshu Sanya, from an innovation perspective, from an academics perspective as well, how do you see it happening, and what new paradigms do you see it emerge from here? Shubhranshu, I think you're on mute. If
yes, thank you. Yeah, good evening, everybody, and thank you for asking me this question. So, see, I am very bad at predicting things, because whatever I try to predict, it doesn't happen. Okay, so I'll not predict anything. Let me share what I see now, how I see myself today, and that might be an example that maybe many people would see things maybe in the same way. One personal experience: 2 days back, we had this thunderstorm, right? So there were this loud thunders and lightning and all that happened towards the afternoon, and then suddenly around 5 o'clock or so. So now this WhatsApp messages, every second you are checking, right? That's the only thing you have with you, and people keep on posting so many things, mostly those depressing stuff. So one friend actually called me, said that, you know what, just go to the terrace, you will see something wonderful. So I walked up the terrace, and he said that, look at this big bright rainbow. I don't know when we saw this kind of rainbow last. Okay, and it was really amazing. And that day the sun set, it looked really beautiful. I don't know when I last watched, or it may be happening every time, but maybe I didn't watch it. Now then I stayed back, and it was a nice breeze and all. And then after half an hour, 40 minutes, when things darkened, oh my God, look at the sky. It's full of stars. I mean, when we had so many stars, there was one bright object just staring in front of me on the western sky, and then there are multiple stars, and my kids started drawing pictures. I told them, you can draw pictures with the stars and all. And then I just opened my mobile, and I downloaded an app which says stargazing, what's your sky tonight? And then I started reading all the stars, the bright object. Even today, now, if you walk up, you will see that bright object staring in front of you. That's Venus. And Venus is at the brightest, maybe on 27th. You can see the brightest Venus. On the left-hand side towards south, that's the Orion constellation. A little bit towards southeast, you have the Canis Major, and you have this bright blue star, Sirius A. On the northeast sky, you have this Ursa Major, which is our Saptarshi Mondal. And I don't know. I mean, in childhood days, probably I've seen it. Then I thought that these are all gone. Actually, the stars are already there, bright in the sky. Only thing, there was a layer of dust, smoke that was hiding the stars. And this thunderstorm, it cleared all those dust. And maybe the lockdown and all, we all know. So that's a good impact. This is how I see life post-COVID. Probably we have stopped seeing all those stars which already were there. And because of this challenge, maybe now we get to see those bright stars now. Okay, so this is how I see a change in perspective. So when you talk about innovation, this is how I look at innovation. Innovation is nothing which is, detached from the reality. Only thing is, due to some incidents, some perceptions, we just get away from the reality, and then you need some real, hard blow to align your thought process to the ground realities. And then you need if it's academia, we are talking about admissions, placements, teaching, both from the student side as well as the faculty side. I think faculty are facing more challenges than students, because the young generation is very much used to this online. But people like us are slowly getting used to online. So I think we need to train more faculty rather than students now. So the challenges are actually coming from different directions. Now everybody's talking digital, okay? But let me tell you, if those vegetables are not picked up every day from the farms, and those guys are not carrying it in their vans and coming it to your doorstep, how will digital help? Technology will not go and pick up those cauliflowers and cabbages from the field. So you have supermarkets open. Go and place an order at Spencer. When do you get it? Is it digital a problem? Problem is the last mile. So I think this experience proved us the importance of last mile as well. You are not getting drivers to drive trucks. And you have startups who are actually making money in this opportunity by just providing drivers. Okay, so just to sum up, when I talk about innovation, I think innovation is about mindset, okay? Mindset to solve problems, to see challenges. Now, I think the challenges that we are seeing today, it ties back to the basics: roti, kapda, makan, healthcare, education. That's the basic. And this experience proved us that, when we are in the comfort zone, we forget the basics. When we're in trouble, that reminds us, these are the basics. And if you don't focus on the basics, nothing works. Okay. So even in our teaching or education, whenever, whatever we are talking, I think refocusing on certain basic things needs to be done. And on the top of it, whatever tools and technology used, those are just as enablers. I would like to finish here. And later on, maybe if you ask me some specific questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, Shubhranshu is a very good analogy which you said, and I missed that opportunity to see the rainbow. And I believe it was a beautiful sight. The WhatsApp was full of it, and the evening was really gorgeous. One interesting point which you did mention, and the way you alluded to, is focus on the basics, and the last mile is important. Perhaps once we go through each of the other speakers, how do we ensure that we're able to strengthen the last mile? How do we ensure that we're able to get to new ways of learning and teaching? I also heard you say that there's the significant challenge of the teachers. The teachers need to be re-taught. They need to relearn. So how do we kind of get there? I'll pause for a second, and maybe I'll take it once I'm done with the panel. It's my pleasure again to welcome Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay from Sister Nivedita University, the Vice Chancellor. Welcome, sir. We were just midway through it when you came in, and we're looking at from the academics perspective. What does it mean in terms of rebooting management teaching? what is your experience so far, and going ahead, how do you see the industry evolve, the practices evolve, and where do you see in the short term, in the medium term, long term, this could lead us to? Dr. Dhrubajyoti, please. I think you're on mute, Dr. Dhrubajyoti. You might need to unmute yourself. It's still, we can't hear you.
Now?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening to everybody. You know that this lockdown situation is making us more actually active than what we are. And I find that from one meeting to another meeting, jumping is something what we are facing right now. Now, the specific question, I am just listening to the last presentation. Now, for me, this new situation is actually setting up a new challenge for our management education also. When you talk about the future managers, right now, don't you think that to get everything ready, say for example, Corona may actually go down and in another 6 months or something like that, but after that, how do you know that again something else is going to come? So we have to get ourselves ready with. And so when we're talking about the future management, now we have to the decisions which will be taken by the management, which is based on dashboards, which is created by the big data, and all this new era of this digital revolution. It is significant focus on different types of technology which are based on problem solving. Now, when we think in this way, I completely agree that the basic management theories are very important, definitely. But along with this, we have to understand that the curricula must be right now. We have to rethink about this curricula to prepare the future generation, to prepare ourselves also, because we are also not very much acquainted with this new situation. And there, the data visualizations for the different types of business intelligence, business analytics, the design thinking for problem solving, all these things are becoming very, very important. When I'm discussing with few of my students who are not basically from management, but who are across the domain, I find that there are two different categories of things they're responding to. One of the responses they're having that this particular online education which we are practicing right now, many of the students who are not regular are right now participating in the classes. Many of the students who never ask questions in the classes, they are asking questions in the classes. And the reason they're citing is that it is actually the comfort zone which is helping them. So the next generation, how they are looking at it, the new education, we have to rethink about it. And based on that, we have to think about our curricula. So immediate, that means the short-term thing is this. We have to prepare ourselves to change our mindset from the traditional curricula to the traditional and or the modern curricula, and add mixing of all these things together so that we can really get the proper future generation ready. So that is what I am looking at as a short-term measure.
Wonderful, Dr. Dhrubajyoti. One important conflict which I see in your thought and what Subhranshu just mentioned before you was he was focusing on the basics and the last mile connect.
Yes.
I heard you say that there's more of you would perhaps need to change the way you deliver. And also connecting with what Dipankar said, content of learning needs to change. And that is something which you are echoing as well. Not only what you need to teach, but what are the contents which you need to teach. I think those are interesting. And also the way of delivering. That's right.
Yes.
So the mode of learning, the mode of teaching, I think that's also Dipankar did mention. The business model would change. I think these are very interesting thoughts. I would take it to Ashok Banerjee. Hi, Ashok sir. If I'm getting some kind of a disturbance sound at the background. If somebody could mute their microphones, yeah, it's better. Prof. Ashok Banerjee comes with a wealth of experience of both industry and academia. Professor Banerjee, would you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah. Good evening and welcome to this webinar. I think I belong to old schools. I still call it a seminar. Anyway, 3 points which come to me, short term. Unless I'm ready today, how can I face the challenges tomorrow? This was all told by Shubhranshu and by Dipankar and also by Professor Chattopadhyay. I very strongly believe that today's students will have to be ready for tomorrow's challenges. The challenges will give them opportunities. Unless they see the rainbow when there's a lot of thunderstorm, how can they see? There may be stars, because, so they have to be ready for tomorrow. Number one. Number two, they must also realize that India is a great land of opportunities. Here I quote our past president APJ Abdul Kalam. APJ Abdul Kalam came to IIM Calcutta. I remember the date, 14th of November, the foundation day of IIM Calcutta, 2011. And he said there have been problems on both sides of the Atlantic and India remained unscathed because of huge domestic consumption. So I very strongly believe our students, our future managers have a big challenge. They must understand that they have got a big thing. They must pick up the best ideas from everybody. And there, I'll tell something from the good old CK Prahlad. And the CKP once said on the IMA convention in 2007, and he said, India is a great land and we must look at a bottomless pyramid. That's the first time he used the term bottomless pyramid. And there, that's the scope, that's the opportunity. So our students should be ready to go to the 6.44 lakh villages, 724 districts, and they must also try to understand India is not the 7 or 9 metro cities or mega cities. India is in the city, India is in the villages. And today, if the COVID problem is sorted out, it will be all the village-oriented economies will be first distinct. That's exactly what is the thing. Unless the cauliflower is coming to my table, how can I travel the last mile? So obviously, rural economy will be flourishing, and I very strongly believe agriculture, which is the mainstay of our economy, 65% of the population still in agriculture, pisciculture and other avenues of work. They will be the guys, So I love to tell as a student of management 3 points, as also a past member of CMA and also as a past chairman of IMC Alum Association. Do not look at today's problems. Look at the challenges, and challenge will give you opportunities. Number one, develop a solid customer connect. This was told by Dipankar sir, and we must develop a customer connect. And then we must develop a solid communication. And let me make a forecast, because I am also making a forecast. I know I'll be wrong. But above the line activities will be stopped and it will be more BTL, below the line. So sales promotion will be a big thing. So people will have to think in a very, very original way to think of tomorrow. So that their challenges are there. So people who put the best foot forward will be the winner. And let me tell you one more thing as a student of management, one more point which I'm very strong. Cash is out, but cash is in. You need knowledge, you need the attitude, and you need the skills, and you need the humility. If you have the humility, if you feel that I am the shop janta, I can tell you I worked in industry and all. So the day I behaved in a shop janta fashion, I can assure you my distributor will throw me out of the room. But the day I went to him to learn about his market, I started learning. That's the thing. I'm talking about my soap selling days. So very honestly speaking, India is a great land of opportunities. Our students should not feel they are lost out. They should feel that there is a lot of challenge, lot of opportunities, and they must understand the environment. And I again go back to this by previous speakers, as Duvojiji sir was also telling, we must understand the environment. Or not only the mega environment, but also the immediate environment, the task environment, micro environment, and also internal environment. And I would love to give you a little this thing. I must know customer connect or consumer connect, whatever you call it, then communication, and then my company objectives, company this thing. I'm not at all worried what all the Finch report, I think too many movies, so that's the thing.
Wonderful.
So that's the thing. I think I very strong. India is a great land, and things will happen for my students, our students. Thank you.
Wonderful, Prof. Banerjee. And just to make the webinar more interactive, there are 2 thoughts. One is, if you all could post all your questions in the chat section, it'll be useful. And I think we are getting a resounding yes to what Dipankar Chakravarti and Dr. Drupajyoti Chattopadhyay said. There's a need, does the content of education need to change? There's a poll which is ongoing here. So far, I don't know if you all can see the results, but we can. But I can see a significant bias towards one area. It ends in after a couple of minutes, so please put in your answers. Everybody who's connected, that does the content of education need to change? So imagine this: while an event like a COVID can disrupt your life, does it also need to disrupt the content of education? Very, very food for thought, which you would never have thought ever, that the way your content of education needs to change. What Professor Banerjee was mentioning, look for opportunities, look for opportunities in the environment. Perhaps the scope of opportunities are changing, which would mean the content of education would also need to keep in pace with the change environment here. Some excellent points coming up here. I move on to Rahul Dasgupta. Dr. Drupajyoti, you have a point to add?
I just want to say that I don't think that what Shubhranshu mentioned is really any conflict with me, because I mentioned always that when we are going to design curriculum, basic management theories and basic understanding. Otherwise, all these things cannot happen. Whatever we are learning, it is from there actually. So, but what I said, that there should be intervention in a new way, and we have to understand how to unlearn a lot of things which we have learned so far.
Wonderful. I think the point well taken, Dr. Drupajyoti. I'm sure Shubhranshu would have been feeling a bit uncomfortable with taking on that point there, but I think is well answered. I move on to Rahul Dasgupta from Globsin, who has seen a huge number of students influx. And I must tell you a small little, I've seen a little trend recently in my LinkedIn profile in the last 10 days or so. I would have got nothing less than 100 requests from students, all asking for summer internships, all asking for new connects. It was really, really surprising to me when I realized that the student community are going through a significant pain. Most of the MBA students who are connected and who have been either offered summer internship jobs, they have either disappeared, or they are looking for opportunities here. So then again, it would mean for them to relook and look out for opportunities in this given period of time. How do they manage the stress? How do they prepare themselves for this change? I don't know how it is with Rahul. So maybe Rahul, a quick word from how do you feel from the academics perspective? How is it you are looking at doing an equivalent of Industry 4.0 in Education 4.0 or equivalent or more?
Thank you, Mr. Shinoy, and it's wonderful to be with everybody here. I think, if I look at the topic of rebooting teaching and learning from an institutional perspective, this debate has been one which has been going on for a long time. It just so happens that because of this COVID situation, I feel post-COVID, particularly, the pace of adoption will be much faster than what perhaps we have debated in the past. But the fact that learning and teaching has to change is not a new thing. I mean, it's something that we all have been sort of grappling with. How do you teach a student better, particularly when you want to move from a teacher-centric model to a student-centric model, where the student is learning, right? So if I look at it from that perspective, and let's step back pre-COVID, so 30 days back before the lockdown, if you ask me that question in terms of challenges, I would have said internally I would have 3 challenges as an institution I'm talking about, and not just Globsin. I'm just generalizing some bit of it, which is one is technology. So how effectively can we blend in technology, and in what proportion, to make sure the learning is at the level that it should be. What kind of infrastructure of technology should institutions have, and do they have requisite infrastructure, a virtual infrastructure? Second is I think, which some of my other colleagues have mentioned, on curriculum and pedagogy, right? So when you look at a management education, the pedagogy is essentially broken down into knowledge, experience, and behavioral elements, which is something which I think Shrikant Datar in his book Rethinking the MBA called it knowing, doing, and being. Now, when you have a blended model of learning, how do you balance those three elements, and that's going to be a challenge in the context of what should be taught physically in campus and what could be done remotely using technology. The third, of course, which some of my other panelists spoke about, is about skilling and reskilling and training our faculties, and to get faculties who are qualified, particularly if you look at management education, you need people who have done PhD, who have been teaching for a while. How do you get a combination of somebody understanding technology really well with that kind of qualification, and how do you look at training them? So I think if you look at it internally, I would look at these three broad challenges that we've had before. And I think the same challenges are there in the shorter term as well. I think our way of looking at it is become more aggressive than what was before. Externally, the challenges are similarly on the student side. Are the students going to be able to learn from home as effectively as they learn in a physical infrastructure? Do they have the kind of infrastructure in their homes? I mean, we're talking about students coming from semi-urban locations. Do they have that kind of bandwidth in their respective homes to learn content which allow a student to learn holistically, not just by reading text, but also looking at videos, looking at simulation? Is that infrastructure available today in our country? That's going to be a challenge that we need to sort of deal with. The corporates, and also if you look at the regulators, I think, are they going to be in sync with institutions looking at a blended model? What are going to be the policies which will allow, and perhaps the onus lies partly on the institution side to convince the corporates as well as the regulators that yes, this can be a model that will work for the industry. This is a model that will work for the regulators as well. So I think these were the challenges before. These are the challenges now. It just what happened post, I think, 24th of March when the lockdown happened, the 80-20 model, which was 80% in campus, 20% technology, completely flipped over. And it became 90-10 to the extent that 90% has to be now done online. And I don't think the system was ready for it. So we all were grappling to, retrain our faculties, trying and figuring out what technology is, available to be used to give a real in-class experience, the combination of video, live, text. What is the right formula? And I think we are still sort of grappling with that as a system. And I think, one of the things I recommend in this process, that what we're looking to do, we have set up an academic think tank task force, who is evaluating, the combination of technology and learning and pedagogy. That is ideal, because this is going to be the longer term sort of perspective that I think institutions have to look at a blended way of delivery. And if they have to look at a blended learning model, they need to really evaluate what kind of technology to be used, what kind of pedagogy to be used, how do you train your faculties. So those are the challenges which are both short-term as well as long-term, which we are trying to sort of grapple with. Also to bring in corporates as a stakeholder for them to accept, people who are skilled through this blended model to be recruited into the industry as well. And what kind of models, perhaps this is the time for academia and industry to actually work in partnership. A little more than what it needed in the past. So that's where I think the institutions really have to work on.
Excellent.
I think, Rahul, you have hit, I think, the nail on the head in proverbially. And you know what? As you were speaking, I put out a poll which says who needs to learn more between the students and the teachers. I think is going
It's 50-50.
It's almost 50-50, but it says the teachers need to learn more than the students at 56-43. So it is.
Yes, because we have to unlearn first.
Yeah, so very interesting point. It's saying 56.
Unlearn, they relearn. Yep.
So yes, Subhranshu, you wanted to make a point? Yes, yeah.
So in fact, I think whatever I guessed when we mentioned that teachers need to learn more, the audience supports that. But next question is more important. What you need to learn, what the teachers need to learn, that is more important. Is it technology? Okay, I don't think that is the problem.
Absolutely.
See, I have seen the best teachers are those people who don't teach. The best teachers are those people who facilitate. Okay, and in management education, the importance of facilitating is something which is missing. Okay, so I think this is the change ideally I would like to see. Instead of giving you a solution, I will actually teach you how to find a solution, and you are capable enough to find out that solution. This is what I feel is facilitating. And if the online transferring to the digital mode or online mode makes that shift from teaching to facilitating, I think Indian management education, the standard will go really high. That's it. Thank you.
So, Supanshu, I'd just like to take that point forward and just look back and say what Rahul said about the point which you mentioned about facilitating. Now, one of the things which I did mention about, which I did hear Rahul say was that you already had created a backbone of infrastructure which is ready for when the rubber hits the road. Ropes in as a school was already ready in terms of imparting education through the digital way. But look back to India, 120 crore people, 130 crore people, how many of them out in the villages without any connectivity or less of connectivity? How do you impart or facilitate teaching there? We have heard plenty of thoughts. Look at the people in the cities. Perhaps we are blessed. And I look back at my own mates, the drivers who are not able to come here. How do the school and how would their education happen there? That's a point which I think maybe I would throw up a question here. Well, it looks like there is certain strata of society who can have access to the digital frames, the digital model. And the way which you articulated a point, and I thought was very brilliant. It's not so much about technology, but about the way you facilitate. How do you reach out to such a large mass of people who don't have access to this? I open it to anybody in the audience. How? Yes, yes, Dipankar.
When I was hearing the discussion by Professor and Shubhranshu, even Rahul also picked up that point. What I'm figuring out is that digital divide is really playing a major role in current days. It suddenly happened. You please try to understand. I think we all understand that this is just sudden happening. Had it been a planned way, we could have probably managed it much better. But as I was telling, even corporates never did a digital transformation last 2 years. They are doing it in last 15 days. So my point is there is digital divide, but we need to really innovatively start thinking how that divide can be merged. And my 2 cents into that, what I'm seeing, and as I'm also connected to some foreign universities on their academic board, I'm seeing that it's continuously the development what is happening is not really real-time, online, just-in-time education. Rather, it's more of batch process, creating content, making those content available, make that available over a lesser amount of bandwidth, and make it more tighter, I should say encrypted in such a manner. Those technologies are coming up so that your videos, audios can also move through on that lower bandwidth, and you can have a feeling of, or a pseudo feeling of online classes, and more of those technologies like AR, VR will come into the picture, and so that you feel that you are still in the classroom, but you are not in a classroom. And I saw in the question in that chat room, somebody told that attention deficit and digital training. I really disagree to that. I mean, whether I'm in class or not, whether I'm doing a digital training or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I'm having attention deficit, I will have in both the places. And I don't really believe in classroom training. I mean, I'm sorry, we have all the teachers, professors here, but I believe, see, if somebody is not coming to a class and really getting what Shubhranshu was telling, that facilitated in a manner that he can solve a problem rather than score high in the exam, I will take that person as more credible than a person who goes to classroom every day and score 100% by just jotting down some answers. So my 2 cents on that the digital divide will slowly, I think it will be a little bit faster because of these changes in COVID-19, will be gone away by a more of augmented reality and delivery of courses over a period of time in a batch mode rather than rather than real on-time mode.
I think, Dipankar, I'll just take that point across to Rahul. And I'm hearing from the chat, Dr. Arindam Banerjee mentioned that while in the classroom teaching, teachers are aware of what the students are doing in the class, which is actually missing in online teaching. I also see Manas Chakravarti say, how do you facilitate student-to-student teaching in online programs? So obviously, there is some kind of a disconnect that online courses obviously cannot totally do away with, cannot obviously replace physical contact teaching. So that comes to a point in which I think I did hear Dr. Dhruva Jyoti speak, or I don't recall who speak, in terms of what, or it was Rahul, who said that what should be taught in campus and off campus, or what are the subjects which one can go the digital way, and what are the ones which can go, which just cannot go the digital way. It has to be a touch and feel kind of an stuff. So, Rahul, would you have any thoughts that in the short term, or if you look at it going ahead, what are the elements of classes or courses which can go digital, and what are the ones which just cannot go? You have to have a hands-on experience.
So I think, like I was mentioning earlier, any content that you teach would have to go through 3 phases of learning, which is the knowledge part of it, the experiential part of it, and then the behavioral part of it, which is the teamwork part of it. Now, if you look at the pure knowledge part of things, that can be done online, I feel. But the moment you look at it from an experiential perspective or a teamwork perspective, teamwork, I think 50-50 in terms of you can facilitate teamwork virtually as well through simulations and through teamworks. But I think if you look at the experiential part, I think that's where you would need to be physically in contact, in premise, at a corporate, doing live projects, or in campus doing live projects, because that's also a very important element of management education. So I guess what that percentage should be, should it be 50-50, 60-40? I think we will get there eventually. I think that's where we are all learning what is that right sort of blend. But yes, there will be certain things which you cannot replicate which is done physically today. I don't think 100% online management education works. So I think, for example, let me give you an example. One of the events we did, if you remember, Mr. Chinoy, the boardroom that we initiated from Globes in Business School. Now, if you look at that as an example, like we have a program where we look at our students simulating a boardroom. They look at actually going through a listed company and try and solve a problem. Now, the physical meeting is only 2 days, but the virtual learning from what is available online and through meetups or through WebEx, those all can be done virtually. So I think, we need to come across a pedagogy or a way of teaching, which is a blend. I don't think any one subject can be all 100% remotely taught. There has to be a component. Marketing may require more physical presence than economics, but I think you will have to have a physical and a virtual blending in anything you do.
It just echoes
the Rahul and added 2 points with everybody's permission.
I just complete 1 point, Mr. Banerjee, with what Rahul said, and just echoing the thoughts Rahul. Devdeep Mukherjee in the chat box mentions, along with development of infrastructure, is it not essential for carrying out studies regarding behavioral changes in students, or digital or online? Will not study regarding student behavior in the new environment help in designing effective pedagogy modules? This is something which you kind of touched upon here. I take this question one more to Professor Banerjee, and we are getting a huge horde of questions pouring in here. And I thought one interesting question was, I just wanted to take one interesting one, especially which is said about India. It was from S. Datta, who mentioned that to address the last mile, we should follow the continuous cycle of learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I pose this question to Prof. Banerjee. When you mean by learn, unlearn, and relearn, and we look at addressing the last mile, perhaps
I'll answer the question in a very, very gist form. It's a very good question. I think all of us in I 4.0 have to change our mindset, number one. So a student today will have to change his or her mindset. So I very strongly suggest that knowledge is power, but they must also understand knowledge is a three component: intellectual knowledge, emotional knowledge, and social knowledge. Because they must be having intellectual knowledge. Rahul was telling, yes, very honest. You need intellectual knowledge, but you also need a lot of social knowledge and also emotional knowledge. So students should, so I have a little formula. Number one, they must be multi-skilled and multitasker, because the industry expects him or her to be multi-skilling and multitasking. For example, now is a time of peace. Okay, I consider this a time of peace in the words of Napoleon, because when there is war, the army cannot practice. When in peace only they can practice. The students must practice their skill sets, so that they should pick up online courses which should give them that thing. And many of the institutes, I'm sure Globsin also has got online courses. I've been just going to the net to see. And so the Harvard Business School having online programs, and those are free, actually virtually free. So are they picking up? Are they picking up a language? So that's the thing. These are all the things they can pick up. But I've got a little formula that will answer Mr. Doctor's question. A, B, C, D, E, F. A for attitude. You need right attitude. Hum honge kamyab. B is basics. Yes, I totally agree that unless my basics are okay, I cannot understand economics at all. Forget economics, forget any maybe purchase management. So I have to understand my basics. I have to understand very good in communication. And communication, I mean, communication to me has got four subsets. Number one is the verbal communication. Number two is the written communication. Number three is audio visual. And number four is the body language. And then D is discipline. And if I have the right attitude and the right discipline, I can assure you, I get 100 out of 100, because you just put A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2. Attitude is 100 and discipline is also 100. Then success will be mine. So, and E will be energy. I need tremendous amount of energy and tremendous amount of friendship. So I would love to end by this thing by telling that today's students must be ready. I'm quoting again from the House of Tatas. They must believe in trust and relationship, because that's exactly what Mr. Ratan Tata told the other day. I must complete with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee. Prof. Banerjee, we are down to the last 8 minutes of the webinar, and still questions are pouring in. I direct the next question to Deepankar. Deepankar, the question from Rajat Roy says, after post-COVID, we'll get very limited time period to change our thoughts and infrastructure. So how will we face the situation? And I am also reflecting on, as in the corporate world as we speak today, there is no sales happening, there's no collections happening, we don't know what's happening to our customers, and customers are unsure, our vendors are unsure, but still they're perennially busy being in touch with them, understanding what we need to do. So from an industry perspective, or how would you see that once we have this lockdown out, and there's going to be obviously a structural and gradual change of getting it back to normal, how will we face the challenge?
Thank you, Mr. Noy. I have a few pointers before going to the actual answer to this question. You picked up a very, very important point that though we are not having sales, though we're not having collection, we are connected to the vendor to understand things. And what I find at this time of crisis, if we can create a communication bridge between the value chain, and I'm talking about value chain from supply to the industry to the my product supply. So it's a full value chain. If I continuously build a trust and communication with them, I don't think we'll be in a odd position. But the question is something else. Is that post COVID-19 we'll have very less time, how we can adjust? I don't think that's a crux of the problem, because we should, I'm sure the large corporates, even SMEs, I know MSMEs will have some trouble, are already started thinking that what is it, the strategic positions we should change to have a better effectiveness in a post-COVID scenario. Say an engineering firm, I was discussing, and I saw a question here also. I was discussing with number of engineering firms. The problem there is, obviously, I do not have a remote working facility. But can I, at this point of time, start thinking how I can utilize my surplus engineering asset, real asset, to something different product chain which is required for COVID-19? Can I think through? Can I make my system more AR, VR, robotics enabled in this period remotely so that we can get more effective remote working? So those are the things we should start thinking. And I'm telling you, it's this time is the time when you should act very, very fast, change your strategic position, and start looking things complete different frame. Rahul, I think you was trying to say. Okay.
So, sir, I think, sir, to your point, I think I totally agree with you. In fact, one of the things that I urge corporates as well as academic institutions to do is you need to have a think tank different than your regular operating team, who is looking at disruptions and innovation in your market segment, and who better would know your market segment than you yourself. And you know exactly the limitations you're going to face. So if you're able to create that today and have a serious think tank who's evaluating options and opportunities of how to disrupt the market or how to disrupt your product or your service line, then I think once things open up, you will at least have a few options to go to market with. But if you're not able to do that now, I think it'll be late. So, I mean, I strongly echo what you just said, and I recommend having a team created internally right away.
Very interesting as you speak, Rahul. We are precisely in most of the industry fraternity are actually segmenting and further segmenting the customers, needing to know them better, more platforms and of communication, reaching out to the last mile. And I must tell you one very interesting thing which has happened during this lockdown. The number of meetings, I don't know if it is true with all of you, but number of meetings which we are stepping into daily seems to have far been more than what we started off
absolutely, absolutely true. Yes, absolutely true.
And we have lost count of what a Saturday is or what a Sunday is. It's become a mind-boggling sea change of the way which we are working. And many a times the pleasure of having a newspaper in the morning is gone. You know, you always look forward to a cup of tea and the paper in hand. I think even that time is eaten away. So obviously it means that you really need to reboot not only the way which we need to communicate, but also our behavior and attitude. Maybe many a time we're still not used to the fact that we need to respect other guys' privacy. We have taken it for granted that the other person is always on board and is always accessible. I think there is a lot of new norms which are coming in, and I'm leading this question to what Snehal Doshi has just asked. Snehal says, maybe I can direct it to any of you. Rebooting should be more of forward booting to the new normal. So it is imperative that the new normal be redefined both for academia and industry. And maybe Subhranshu on the last mile. Secondly, last mile delivery in digital world is a new challenge in terms of logistics, and you may throw some light on it. I leave it open to anybody who would like to answer this or a thought on this. Yeah, yes, Subhranshu.
Yeah. See, one point that I think I want to open up for, I will not open up for discussion, but just for everybody to think. So whatever we are thinking or strategizing, that cannot happen without thinking about 50% plus population, which is still dependent. And I think for the next 10 years or 15 years, will be dependent on those agri and allied services. That means those very basic stuff which you're talking about, and which is now termed as essentials. Okay, so all those, and this is what I mean when I say back to basics. So whenever, and I think more and more, the industry should realize that there was a term called corporate social responsibility. To most of the industry, it was more like charity and something which is a compulsion, like 2%. I think that thought process should change now. Probably the industry should realize they exist because the community exists. And if the community doesn't exist, they don't exist. So I think this is a big change, which you call rebooting or forward booting or whatever, that everybody is realizing. Okay. And management education should also align the teaching or the curriculum and put a big thrust on this point, which is consciousness that we are all connected to this community. this is one point I wanted to raise because we have a thought leader here in this forum.
Shubhanshu, I think, yeah, Rahul, please go ahead, Rahul.
I think I want to echo one point which Shubhanshu made earlier on. Technology has to be looked at as a tool and not as a solution. And I think you can utilize that tool in different ways, in different communities and different infrastructures and different geographies. For example, when you talk about last mile connectivity, nowadays, earlier on, we used to look at social media as just socializing, right? Facebook was used for connecting with friends. Instagram was used for uploading pictures. But today, Facebook and Instagram is used for learning and development and teaching and sort of doing live sessions. So that itself changes the way learning happens. Now, there could be geographic locations where people can access Insta live sessions or Facebook live sessions. There could be geographic locations where only a file could be downloaded and you don't have that kind of bandwidth. So I think depending on where we are communicating or getting the content out, depending on the geographic location, the technology should be used appropriately. And I think if you look at it as a tool and if you look at the challenge in terms of infrastructure, you can solve that problem, at least in the short term. Long term, of course, we need to look at the infrastructure to be revamped in our country.
I'll just take 30 seconds.
Yeah, please, Diwakar.
I have only one point to say. Probably let's take this challenge and make India 100% literate through whatever digital mode we are thinking, because it is impossible to build schools and teach everyone in India. Then you need the whole Bay of Bengal as your school. So I am sure this is the mode we should now accelerate and get the whole India learn as a 100% learned country. So I think that's the silver lining we should have through this challenge to get it. Not only management teaching I'm talking about.
Wonderful. Rahul, I'll just complete the point which you're making earlier just on the technology part, and maybe which we have not touched upon or reflect on the discussion. Dhritiman Bharat mentions, how does technology enable learning the students where survival is a big question in different remote areas of India? I think the city areas, the urban areas, the metros seem to have been well covered. They don't have light, sanitation, drinking water. Can someone give some solutions about this? We have been hearing a lot of options coming about Dhritiman, Doordarshan being employed as a medium for education. Can that be done? There's some thought of cable TVs reaching out. How can that be done? Can the radio be used for education, for some platform for reaching out? Can that be done? So I'm sure that we don't have a good answer right now, but I'm sure going ahead in the medium term or long term, there will be new avenues of reaching out. There's obviously nothing like the teaching pedagogy of one-to-one. But I think what we are sure that social distancing is going to be a norm, and the way education is going to be taught is definitely going to be far, far different. Yeah, Rahul.
I have a point to Ridhiman's questions. I think, you see, I will look at it from a different perspective and not from a technology perspective. I think the challenge if you look at the adults, particularly if you look at the science of adult learning and pedagogy that we all know of, the first principle is intention, right? So I think if the students have the right intention for learning, I think there are a lot of avenues available today, combination of television, combination of Facebook, combination of online courses like Coursera. AICT has lots of online courses free of cost available. HBX has courses like I mentioned. So I think if the student fraternity can look at learning online seriously with the same seriousness as they would learn in class, I think they already have a lot of options available. And as and when we progress in the next coming months, I think more options will come alive. So I would recommend to the students to look at what is available. And I think there's enough available already to look at.
Yeah, Rahul, thank you. We are almost coming to the end. We have exceeded our time. Even if I try to summarize the thoughts that have been, yes.
Just one line comment actually. I find there is some sort of reservation regarding the technology, but I think technology can really give the solution and really can come up, because I think about my young days where telephone is something which is available in only one person's house in our locality, and now mobile is with everybody. And now the use of mobile, the mobile revolution itself shows that how the communication has been completely changed. Similarly, the development of AI in all the different domains, from health to medical to every field, it will make a set different types of revolution. And I'm sure that is also going to give a solution for the digital divide. Looking forward that the government of India will give a lot of importance to this, how to reach to the extreme part of the country and gives the internet facility to all over, and how the bandwidth will be better is definitely going to help us in changing our mode of education.
Wonderful, doctors. I think what we have got enough food for thought today. Rahul did mention about the point Dr. Dhrubajyoti was mentioning about corporates also playing a bit of the part, not treating CSR as a CSR, but treating CSR more for Skill India, Upgrade India. Also, I think Deepankar, you did mention it's more about the intention rather than it's more of the intention and conviction of an individual to overcome the crisis, which can take us through these tough times. Thank you everyone for a wonderful session altogether. I just take away 4 key points for us from here. COVID or no COVID, the basics remain the same. Intention is what is needed, and the facilitation of what we need to do would be the key differentiating factor. The mode of learning is definitely going to change. Is it needed? Yes, it is needed. Different business models are going to be evolved. Content of learning is going to change again. That the way content is taught, the way the new paradigms of skilling is needed, what's going to be taught, and how it's going to be taught, that's going to change. Infrastructure and technology are going to be key drivers. I'm reflecting on people who have been prepared for it when the rubber hits the road. Who will be the most well prepared are people who have got a good backbone of infrastructure, who have got the technology tied up with them, and people who have not done will be on the back foot. So I think going ahead, people who are the most well off or who are going to embrace the change are the ones who are invested in technology, and they'll be ahead of the curve, both in corporates and in business world and in the B school world. Finally, what needs to be taught is going to be customized. What element of what degree of customization between digital and physical is going to evolve over a period of time. The next few months is going to be a mad rush. We don't know what the light is at the end of the tunnel, whether it's a light at the end of the tunnel or it's that of a train which is coming on board to smash us. Time will tell us. But thank you all for a wonderful 1 hour session spent with all of you. I think questions are still pouring in. And Shauli, thank you for having us here. And if anybody else has got any other points, otherwise, I look back and I'm going to look at the Saptarishi today. Subhranshu, look at the rainbow. I hope when it comes and all of us can enjoy the clean, lovely night skies and reflect on, well, all we needed to do a different spectacle, and you can see a great new scene in front of you. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.